Hello everybody, thank you for joining us today for Devotionables, brief devotions for busy people. My name is Gabriel. Today, we continue our march through the entire story of the whole Bible in 16 verses. We've seen already that God is the main character. This is His story. The Bible tells the story of God. God is the creator. We've learned that in chapter 1 and chapter 2. God is the hero. And in chapter 3, we are going to learn the answer to one of life's most important questions. This is a question that all religions, all worldviews, they have an answer to. But there's only one answer that's correct. And if you get your answer from Genesis 3, that puts you on good footing. It's the truth, right? And the question is this: what is wrong? What is wrong with the world? What is wrong with life? Genesis chapter 3 tells us. You remember, as God created all things, and there is nothing that exists, visible or invisible, that God didn't create. He stands above all things as creator. And He created everything in perfect order. You notice in chapter 1 that just comes out. There's an orderly account, and out of chaos, God brings order. Out of nothing, God brings substance, right? He brings life. And there's this refrain that is said, I think that we hear it 7 times, in kind of a different way, but it was good. And God saw that it was good. And after God looks upon all of His entire creation, He says, it was very good. And standing at the pinnacle of that creation is mankind, men and women. No other creature can say this, that we as human beings are created in God's very own likeness, in His image. And that's what we've seen so far. And Adam and Eve, they knew God. They communed with God. They were in an intimate relationship with Him, living out their design, living out the purposes for which God had created them. Things are going swimmingly well, and then everything, the railroad train, the train falls off the railroad track, so to speak, right? Everything goes wrong in Genesis chapter 3. But we have to remind ourselves of Genesis chapter 2. See, Adam and Eve are put into this garden, this paradise called Eden. And in Eden, they are operating as God designed, right? They're to cultivate and to create and to do all these things, to work and toil, to work the ground. Things are going very well for them. God has given them one prohibition, only one thing that they cannot do. They have all this freedom, they have this liberty, this responsibility. And there's one thing that God tells them not to do. In the midst of this garden, the Garden of Eden, there was a couple of trees, important trees. One was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and God said, do not eat from this tree. For in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. And all of a sudden, in Genesis chapter 3, we're introduced to a new character. Also a creature, mind you. Satan is a creature. This is Satan taking the form of a serpent, our ancient enemy, our ancient foe, as the Apostle John would speak of him, the dragon. And he comes up and he begins to cast doubt upon the goodness of God, upon God's word, and with subtle whispers to get Eve to doubt the goodness of God. And he tempts her to eat from this particular tree of which they have been prohibited not to eat. And here in verse 6, when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was desirable to make one wise, she took from its fruit and ate. And she gave also to her husband with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together, and made themselves loin coverings. So here's the fall. Disobedience, sin, to fall short of God's mark. And you and I, as part of the lineage from Adam and Eve, we are sinners by birth and sinners by choice. Paul would pick this up in Romans chapter 5 in verse 12. Therefore, just as through one man sin entered into the world, and death through sin, so death spread to all men, because all sinned. Now there's very good news in verse 13 and 14 and 15 and what like. But we're going to save that for later, for the next devotional, as even in judgment, God promises good news. And we'll look at that next time. Blessings on you today.